Pink like the inside of your baby, pink behind all of the doors. Crazy pink like the tongue that goes down. Maybe pink like the paradise found. Pink when you're blushing inside. Baby pink like the truth you can't hide. Maybe pink like the folds of your brain. Crazy pink as we all go insane. So here we are in the car, leaving traces of us down the boulevard. I wanna fall through the stars, getting lost in the dark's my favorite part. Let's count the ways we can make this last forever. Sunny, funny, keep it funky, touch your top and let it down, yeah. Some like that, yeah. Some like that, 'cause boy it's cool if you got blue, 'cause we got the pink. Inside of your, we're all pink, pink like the walls and the doors. Inside pink, pink like your fingers in mine. And our hearts pink is where all of it starts. Pink like your tongue going round. Baby pink like the sun going down. Maybe pink like the holes in your heart. Baby pink is my favorite part. Hello and welcome to the very last of this first season of Salon. It's really great to see you all here. I am in the outfit that won the vote. More than half of you decided blood red was the sequins of choice. So here I am. I know I'm kind of sat down, so you're not seeing as much of it as maybe you'd hoped. And indeed, if you didn't vote for this, you didn't hope to see it at all. But I promise that it was quite close, and I will wear the other sequins in season 2. Spoiler, season 2. But yes, for tonight, I want you to assure me that you are drinking from a stern beverage, because we're going to take a step into the hidden world, the forbidden world of banned books. I'm drinking a cider tonight from my biblio bar upstairs. And it is surprising how stern a drink a cider can be. Literally, my partner, who is filming this, looked at me as I sat down to do this and said, "Oh, you're on the cider." So yes, I'd be glad you're not around at the end of this. Or maybe you will be. I've got a Zoom invite for you later. So this is a little homage to both my Cornish ancestry and my Yorkshire ancestry with this little pint glass here. We'll touch on those a bit later on. So what I want to say first of all, I mean, I've set the table really by going on about alcohol so much, but this is a salon which might become a little bit more provocative. These books have been banned. They are a bit racy. So if there are little heifers with little ears, you may want to exercise caution, parental guidance. There's some light swears, nothing dramatic, nothing blue, but phallus is going to come up, which, as we know, can be alarming. So just a little heads up, as it were. I'm going to start by talking to you about one of my favourite banned books. I've got 2 extracts for you from the most famous banned books that I could possibly find in English literature. The second one you'll know. The first one I think is a little bit more unusual, but I like it a whole lot more actually. It was by someone who was writing about lesbianism almost for the first time, setting out a stall in which to show that lesbianism was both natural, was there from birth for a lot of people, and was not something that was something that could be fought with or argued. And this person who was writing it knew they were going to massively jeopardise their career by writing this. They're a very successful writer. She was hugely famous already, and she almost didn't write this book, but she did. And she did get into a huge amount of trouble over it. There were 2 huge court cases, one here, one in America. This is all in the 1920s. And the book was burnt on both sides of the Atlantic. But for the rest of her life, Radcliffe Hall was receiving letters from people from all over the world saying, "I had no language for who I was and what I felt until I read The Well of Loneliness." And that was something that continued indefinitely, and I'm sure many people feel that way even today. So I think it's really valuable to commemorate this fantastic piece of very, very brave literature. So here you are, an extract from The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. Illustrated for us wonderfully by Jackie Fleming on our beginning and end pages that you see. For some reason you often see pictures of her with a small pug or other small dog. Not Jackie, by Radcliffe Hall is often illustrated like that, is photographed like that, and Jackie illustrated that for us because it was a really cute picture, or certainly of the dog. Radcliffe's a bit butch to be cute. While still a child, Stephen first came conscious of an urgent necessity to love. She adored her father, but this was something quite different. He was a part of herself. It was other with Collins, the housemaid. She was florid, full-lipped and full-bosomed, rather ample indeed for a young girl of 20, but her eyes were unusually blue and arresting, very pretty, inquisitive eyes. Stephen had seen Collins sweeping the stairs for 2 years and had passed her by quite unnoticed. But one morning, when Stephen was just over 7, Collins looked up and suddenly smiled. And then all in a moment, Stephen knew that she loved her. A staggering revelation. Collins said very politely, "Good morning, Miss Stevens." She always said, "Good morning, Miss Stephen," but on this morning it sounded so alluring. Oh, so alluring that Stephen wanted to touch her and extended a rather uncertain hand to stroke her sleeve. Collins picked up the hand and, staring at it, said, "Oh my, what very dirty nails," whereupon their owner flushed crimson and dashed upstairs to repair them. "Put those scissors down this minute, Miss Stephen," came the nurse's proprietary voice when her charge was still busily engaged upon her toilet. But Stephen said firmly, "I'm cleaning my nails because Collins doesn't like them. She says they're dirty." "What impudence!" snapped Mrs. Bingham. "I'll thank her to mind her own business." Having finally secured the large cutting-out scissors, Mrs. Bingham went forth in search of the offender. She was not one to tolerate interference with the dignity of her station. She found Collins on the top flight of stairs and forthwith started to upbraid her, "putting her back in her place," the nurse called it. And she did so thoroughly that in less than 5 minutes the housemaid had been told of every fault that was likely to preclude promotion. Stephen stood in the nursery doorway. She could feel her heart thumping against her side, thumping with anger and pity for Collins, who was answering never a word. There she knelt, mute, with her brush suspended, her mouth slightly open and her eyes rather scared. And when at long last she did manage to speak, her voice sounded humble and frightened. She was timid by nature, and the nurse's sharp tongue was a byword throughout the house. "Interfere with your child? Oh no, Mrs. Bingham, I never. I hope I knows my place better than that. Miss Stephen herself showed me them dirty nails. She said, 'Collins, look, aren't my nails awful dirty?' And I said, 'You must ask Nanny about that, Miss Stephen.'" Oh, Collins, with those pretty blue eyes and that funny, alluring smile. Stephen's own eyes grew wide with amazement, and then they clouded with sudden and disillusioned tears, for far worse than Collins' poorness of spirit was the dreadful injustice of those lies. Yet this very injustice seemed to draw her to Collins, since despising, she could still love her. For the rest of the day, Stephen brooded darkly over Collins' unworthiness, and yet she caught herself smiling, quite unable in her turn to muster the courage to frown her innate disapproval. And Collins smiled too, if the nurse was not looking, and she held up her plump red fingers, pointing to her nails and making a grimace at the nurse's retreating figure. Watching her, Stephen felt unhappy and embarrassed, not so much for herself as for Collins, and this feeling increased, so that thinking about her made Stephen go hot down her spine. It was evening when Collins was laying the tea that Stephen finally managed to get her alone. "Collins," she whispered, "you told an untruth. I never showed you my dirty nails." "Of course not. But I had to say something. You didn't mind, did you, Miss Stephen?" And as Stephen looked doubtfully up in her face, Collins suddenly stooped and kissed her. Stephen stood speechless, with a sheer sense of joy, all her doubts completely swept away. And at that moment, she knew nothing but beauty and Collins, and the two were one, and the one was Stephen. And yet not Stephen either, but something more vast that the mind of seven has no name for. The nurse came in, grumbling. "Now then, hurry up, Miss Stephen. Don't just stand there as if you were daft. Go and wash your face and hands before tea. How many times must I tell you the same thing?" "I don't know," said Stephen. And indeed she did not. She knew nothing of such trifles in that moment. So it's not very challenging to us now, is it? But it was a huge, huge controversy at the time. Partly because of its sympathy, and as I say, one of the first times that a high-profile lesbian writer had laid out a stall like that, or a gay writer of any kind. So really a magnificent piece of work and a landmark. I'm going to read you now another very famous banned book, probably the most famous, the one that we probably all know and is probably well thumbed by many of us in our youth. Speaking of things that were well thumbed in our youth, actually, I did notice that in that last piece, I was my housemaid, my Collins, seemed to just automatically go towards being the caramel bunny. I'm not quite sure whether that's some kind of early sexy programming that I had there. I know that a lot of my peers, a lot of my boys who are my age always say that was one of their first fantasies, the caramel bunny, if you're old enough to remember her from a Cadbury's advert. But I love the fact that's actually voiced by Miriam Margolyes, who I think would absolutely love to be the object of the early affections of a lot of young men. I think she'd find that very entertaining. Anyway, so speaking of entertaining young men, we're going to do a piece now from, of course, Lady Chatterley's Lover, because we couldn't really do a banned books salon without looking at this. I think it is the first male I've done in this season, so I think that's quite a good ratio, actually. This is where it perhaps does get a little bit more spicy of language, balance and all that. So I know we're reaching a new level of intimacy here, audience. What happens in a salon stays in a salon, I like to think. But I'm just putting this out there as a little warning. As my Yorkshire forebearers would say, brace, brace. So one more stiff one for the road. Push hearts, everyone. And we'll see if this is as shocking now as it was when it was one of the most famous trials around books there's ever been in English literature. Then he woke and looked at the light. The curtains were drawn. He listened to the loud, wild calling of blackbirds and thrushes in the woods. It would be a brilliant morning. About 5:30, his hour for rising. He'd slept so fast. It was such a new day. The woman was still curled, asleep and tender. His hand moved on her and she opened her blue, wondering eyes, smiling unconsciously into his face. "Are you awake?" he said to her. He was looking into her eyes. He smiled and kissed her, and suddenly she roused and sat up. "Fancy that I'm here," she said. She looked round the little whitewashed bedroom with its sloping ceiling and gable window where the white curtains were closed. The room was bare, save for a little yellow-painted chest of drawers and a chair and the small whitish bed in which she lay with him. "Fancy that we are here," she said, looking down at him. He was lying, watching her, stroking her breasts with his fingers under the thin nightdress. When he was warm and smoothed out, he looked young and handsome. His eyes could look so warm, and she was fresh and young like a flower. "I want to take this off," she said, gathering the thin nightdress and pulling it over her head. She sat there with bare shoulders and longish breasts faintly golden. He loved to make her breasts swing softly like bells. "You must take your pyjamas off too," she said. Nay. Yes, she commanded. And he took off his old pyjama jacket and pushed down the trousers. Save for his hands and wrists and face and neck, he was white as milk, with fine, slender, muscular flesh. To Connie, he was suddenly piercingly beautiful again, as when she'd seen him that afternoon washing himself. Gold of sunshine touched the closed white curtain. She felt it wanted to come in. "Oh, do let's draw the curtains. The birds are singing, so do let the sun in." He slipped out of bed with his back to her, naked and white and thin, and went to the window, stooping a little, drawing the curtains and looking out for a moment. The small buttocks were beautiful, with an exquisite, delicate manliness, the back of the neck ruddy and delicate yet strong. There was an inward, not an outward strength in the delicate, fine body. "But you're beautiful," she said, "so pure and fine. Come." She held her arms out. He was ashamed to turn to her because of his aroused nakedness. He caught his shirt off the floor and held it to him, coming to her. "No," she said, holding out her beautiful, slim arms still from her dropping breasts. "Let me see you." He dropped the shirt and stood still, looking towards her. The sun through the low window sent in a beam that lit up his thighs and slim belly and the erect phallus, rising darkish and hot-looking from the little cloud of vivid gold-red hair. She was startled and afraid. "How strange," she said slowly. "How strange he stands there, so big and so dark and cocksure. Is he like that?" The man looked down at the front of his slender white body and laughed. "So proud," she murmured uneasily, and so lordly. "Now I know why men are so overbearing. But he's lovely, really, like another being, a bit terrifying, but lovely, really. And he comes to me." And she caught her lower lip in her teeth, in fear and in excitement. It's not really so shocking now, is it? Is it shocking? Are you so shocked you've all gone? I don't know. I do love the fact that to hear the way that D.H. Lawrence describes the male form and all its lordly, overbearing glory, whereas we get the breasts swinging like bells. But still, it always amuses me when men. This is Mrs. Lovely chiming in there. When men describe a phallus, I do always like. I like that. I do find it a bit of a lark sometimes, that leads me to, I think, a kind of modern version. I'm going to finish with a song for you, and it's by the wonderful Rachel Bloom of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend fame. And I think it's a kind of modern take on everything, all the dignity and prowess that DH was trying to give, his member in that last extract. So I think it's a fitting closure to the work in the Salon that I've been highlighting for this first season with you. Here we go. Baby, when you left me for another girl, you know you broke my heart and shattered my whole world. We had a love I thought was true. Can't you see, baby, I'm lost without you? 'Cause all I can do is lay around and post pictures of your tiny dick on the internet. All I can do is sit and cry. Now all I can do is lay around and post pictures of your tiny dick on the internet. Yes, all I can do is sit and cry. All I can do is cry. And the house is so empty since you've gone away. But last night I found the tux you wore on Valentine's Day. I hugged it tight, it smelled like you. Then I photoshopped that tux onto a picture of your dick. Now all I can do is lay around and post pictures of your fancy dick on the internet. All I can do is sit and cry. Now all I can do is lay around and add a speech bubble that says, "Cheerio, I'm Tim's tiny dick on the way to a party, pip pip." All I can do is sit and cry. All I can do is, I saw you on the street the other day. I smiled and said, "Hey Tim, you look good." and you said, "Stop posting pictures of my dick on the internet, you crazy person. I will sue you for invasion of privacy, you insane bitch." Now all I can do is lay around and post pictures of your dick around your neighbourhood like it's a lost puppy. All I can do is sit and cry. Now all I can do is lay around and write lost dick answers to the name Tim's tiny dick. All I can do is sit and cry. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for being part of this crazy roller coaster of the first season. It's my turn to try not to cry now as well, because it's time to part. I want to thank my team, my funders so much, because they've been amazing and super supportive. And I want to thank everyone who's let me use their material, whether they've known they were letting me or not. They've been incredibly generous. And also to Jackie for the amazing illustrations. It's just been such a privilege, and I can't quite believe that you've illustrated this season, that you're going to illustrate the next season. And mostly, I can't believe you guys are out there watching. Thank you so, so much. You've been just amazing. A lot of you I know have watched every week, or caught up with it every week if you couldn't come live. We all know coming live is the best. And you've stuck with me through bad tech and good tech. And I really want to invite you to come back to me in July when I'm going to start season 2, which will be really exciting. I'm thrilled about it. We're going to look at people like Billie Holiday, Maya Angelou, Nina Simone, lots of other amazing women. And I'm going to be working with a very wonderful colleague of mine, Kudzi, to bring you a kind of new look, slightly new look, Salon de la Vie. You're blooming marvellous. Please stay safe, hang tough. You've got me through lockdown. I hope some of the stuff you found in places like this have been helpful for you. I'm so glad you're out there. Stay safe, push hearts. Here's to you. This is a PS. I forgot to say, I do hope some of you are going to stay on and join me in a little Zoom, kind of at the bar after the show type affair that I'm trying to do next. If you're keen, just message me on the message board and I will send you a Zoom link. I'd just love to, thank you, have a toast with you, have a little glass, swift half or whatever, get some feedback and give you some spoilers about season 2, work out what you want to do going forward, what you'd like from me. And basically, yeah, just take a drink in your honour. Thank you very much. See you in the bar.